What if the man next door was secretly a serial killer for decades? That's the chilling reality of Lonnie David Franklin Jr., the grim sleeper who terrorized Los Angeles between 1985 and 2007, leaving behind a trail of murdered women and unanswered questions. Franklin preyed on women in South Central LA, often those struggling with addiction or homelessness. He would lure them into his car, promising safety or help, only to brutally assault, shoot, and abandon their bodies in alleys or dumpsters. His horrifying trophies included photos and Polaroids of his victims, chilling evidence found hidden in his home. Police struggled to connect the dots for years, partly due to systemic neglect of his marginalized victims. But in 2010, a breakthrough came. A familial DNA match through Franklin's son linked him to the crimes. The discovery opened a window into Franklin's decades-long killing spree, one the police feared might involve far more victims than the 10 he was convicted for in 2016. In court, Franklin showed no remorse, maintaining an eerie calm while the families of his victims sought justice. Sentenced to death, he died in prison in 2020, leaving behind unanswered questions about the true scale of his crimes. How did this predator evade capture for so long? The story will leave you speechless. Imagine checking into a hotel where every corridor is a trap and every room hides a nightmare. This was the reality of H. Holmes' Murder Castle, a sinister building constructed for one purpose: murder. In the late 1800s, during Chicago's 1893 World's Fair, Holmes used charm and deceit to lure victims, mostly young women seeking jobs or lodging, into his deadly web. The hotel was a macabre maze of death. Soundproof rooms were rigged with hidden gas pipes to suffocate victims. Trapdoors and secret chutes led directly to the basement, where Holmes's horrors continued. The cellar was equipped with a furnace to burn bodies, acid vats to dissolve remains, and surgical tables where he dissected victims. Holmes even profited by selling the skeletons to medical schools. Holmes's killing spree spanned years, fueled by his con artistry and greed. He orchestrated scams and frauds while leaving a trail of death across the country. His undoing came when his business partner, Benjamin Petezel, and Petezel's 3 children disappeared. Investigators connected Holmes to their deaths and uncovered the ghastly truth about his hotel. While Holmes confessed to 27 murders, investigators believed he could have killed over 200 people. Unrepentant and eerily calm, Holmes was executed by hanging in 1896. His murder castle was later destroyed, but his legacy remains one of the darkest chapters in American crime history. What if the loving father next door was secretly one of the deadliest hitmen in history? Meet Richard Kuklinski, the man who led a double life so sinister it earned him the chilling nickname, the Iceman. While his family believed he was a hard-working provider, Kuklinski was killing for the mob, and sometimes for his own twisted pleasure. Over 3 decades, Kuklinski claimed to have murdered over 200 people, using methods so diverse and horrifying they sound like something out of a crime novel. Guns, knives, poison, cyanide. He even fed one victim a burger laced with cyanide just to watch him die. His trademark? Freezing his victims' bodies to confuse investigators about their time of death. But the most terrifying part of Kuklinski's story wasn't his methods. It was his ability to hide in plain sight. To his wife and children, he was a devoted husband and doting father, attending family barbecues and Christmas celebrations. They had no idea the man they loved was coming home from grisly executions. In 1986, after years of evading justice, Kuklinski was finally caught in a sting operation. His cold, emotionless confessions shocked the world. It was just business, he said, showing no remorse for the countless lives he ended. Sentenced to life in prison, Kuklinski spent the rest of his days behind bars, where he gave chilling interviews revealing his mindset. "I didn't feel anything for them," he admitted. No anger, no pleasure, just nothing. He died in 2006, but his story remains a haunting reminder that evil can lurk behind even the most ordinary facade. Imagine a killer so twisted he drank his victim's blood for pleasure. That's the horrifying reality of Peter Kürten, better known as the Vampire of Düsseldorf. In the late 1920s, this sadistic murderer turned an entire city into his hunting ground, leaving a trail of terror and blood in his wake. Curtin's spree was unpredictable and brutal. From stabbing and strangling to bludgeoning, his victims, children and adults alike, never saw him coming. But his thirst for blood wasn't just metaphorical. Curtin's crimes earned him his terrifying nickname because he would drink his victim's blood, claiming it brought him twisted satisfaction. What made him even more horrifying? His calm, calculated demeanor. When he was finally captured in 1930, thanks to his own wife turning him in, Curtin confessed to over 30 attacks, including 9 murders. His chilling testimony revealed a monster who killed not just for blood, but for the sheer thrill of it. Executed by guillotine in 1931, Curtin's name remains synonymous with depravity. How did a man like this operate for so long without being caught? What drove his unspeakable thirst for violence? Dive into the story of one of history's most terrifying serial killers. On the night of June 9, 1912, in Villisca, Iowa, the Moore family, Josiah and Sarah Moore and their 4 children, along with 2 visiting children, were brutally murdered in their sleep. The weapon, an axe which was used to strike each victim multiple times. The gruesome crime shocked the small town, and the case remains one of Iowa's most horrifying unsolved mysteries. The killer, or killers, showed a disturbing level of care and coldness. After the murders, the axe was left at the scene, and the killer covered the victims' heads with sheets before walking through the house and turning off the lights. Strangely, the killer stayed in the house for several hours, even eating food from the Moore's kitchen, before leaving undetected. Several theories have surrounded the case, with multiple suspects, including a man named Reverend George Kelly, who was briefly arrested but never charged. Others speculate that the killer may have been a local man named Henry Lee Moore, no relation to the family, who was later convicted of similar crimes. Despite numerous investigations and modern forensic attempts, the Vassila Axe Murders remain unsolved to this day. The mystery of who killed the Moore family and why continues to haunt Villisca, and the case remains a chilling reminder of a tragedy that has never been fully explained. In Victorian England, Mary Ann Cotton became infamous for a string of murders that spanned 2 decades. Born in 1832, her life seemed unremarkable, but behind her innocent facade lay a cold-blooded killer. She poisoned at least 21 people, including her husbands, children, and even her own mother, all for financial gain. Using arsenic, a poison that mimicked common illnesses, Mary Ann caused the deaths of those closest to her, all while collecting life insurance payouts. After each tragedy, she moved on to her next victim, ensuring her wealth grew with every death. Her killing spree unraveled in 1872 after the suspicious death of her stepson, Charles Edward Cotton. An autopsy revealed arsenic poisoning, and authorities soon discovered a disturbing pattern of deaths tied to her. Mary Ann was arrested, tried, and convicted of murder. On March 24, 1873, she was hanged in Durham prison, her death drawing out in a grisly execution. Mary Ann Cotton's legacy as Britain's first female serial killer remains chilling, a tale of greed, manipulation, and betrayal that continues to haunt history. In 1965, the small town of Indianapolis was rocked by one of the most horrific crimes in American history: the torture and murder of 16-year-old Sylvia Likens. Sylvia's tragic story is one of betrayal, cruelty, and the ultimate failure of those around her to protect her. Sylvia and her younger sister Jenny were left in the care of Gertrude Banaszewski, a single mother of 7, while their parents traveled for work. At first, things seemed fine, but when payments for their care arrived late, Gertrude began taking out her frustrations on Sylvia in unimaginable ways. Gertrude's abuse escalated from verbal taunts to severe physical violence. Encouraged by her children and even neighborhood kids, Sylvia was subjected to starvation, beatings, and unspeakable humiliation. The abuse became more sadistic, with Sylvia being burned, carved, and locked in a filthy basement. Despite her sister Jenny's attempts to seek help, no one intervened. Teachers, neighbors, and even Sylvia's own parents missed the signs of her suffering. On October 26, 1965, after months of torment, Sylvia succumbed to her injuries. Her body showed over 150 wounds, a testament to the unimaginable cruelty she endured. The trial that followed shocked the nation. Gertrude and several of her children were convicted, but their sentences were controversial. Gertrude, the mastermind, was paroled after only 20 years. Sylvia's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the consequences of silence and inaction, and it continues to be one of the most chilling cases of abuse and murder in true crime history.